Good afternoon and welcome to a new episode of the Upside Podcast. My name is Kristie and I am your host. Today's guest is Amr El Henawy. I think I got that right. Amr is a former Egyptian ambassador, spent over 30 years in diplomacy and civil service, most notably as consul general to London, Hong Kong, and Slovakia. Today, he's a strategic advisor helping families, companies, and investors navigate the complexities of doing business in the Arab world. His work includes cultural advisory, market entry, due diligence, family office, and VC engagement across the MENA region. And he joins us from Oman. But which part of Oman exactly are you at, Amr?
At the south at the moment, which is where all the trade between the East and West originated many centuries ago. Salalah is the city where I am, which much closer to the Yemeni border than the Gulf, on the Indian Ocean. Oman has a coastline of 3,200 kilometers, so it covers the Indian Ocean and the Persian Sea of Oman. Many names, each country in the region calls it.
How old
Geographically,
is
that is.
there's a historical significance to this location as well, you were telling me earlier.
Yeah. So this was the it was the spice trail almost, or the spice trade all originated through this point here, which is an area called Samharam. They have this very precious resin from the trees, which is called frankincense, which has medicinal and spiritual powers. And the ancient Egyptians used it. The Chinese use it in temples. All the Orthodox Christians use it heavily for healing, for spiritual purposes, and for healing. It was one of the most recognized things for all sorts of medical issues, which are still used today. So it was the connection between India, further in China, cross to southern Egypt, and then to Europe. So this is a very old place where human interaction was a lot more common, and I guess more peaceful than it is today sometimes.
Yeah. And also, I guess with the recent events that have been happening over Saturday, what have you... I'm guessing you must have been very busy since some of these altercations kind of escalated. Now it's day 4 or day 5, I think.
Day 6. Well, we don't count in the region. It happens sadly regularly. It's always been a volatile region, but the volatile region that has actually done very well in the last 10-15 years in terms of progress and building capital markets and connectivity, and that's quite sort of the disrupting part of all of this. Is this connection that is being made, that's been very positive. It still remains very subject to all this volatility between neighboring countries and historical problems with religion or influence between Gulf countries and Iran, between Iran and declared reasons of Israel, and then of course being in the Middle East, as we were discussing before the podcast, a term that some people dispute as Western Asia, but it is something that you have to mitigate because of the oil, I guess, and the access to shipping lanes, which is the Straits of Hormuz. And that then brings the region into a lot more focus with the international players and international influence, or changing international world order. So all these factors add a lot of excitement, a lot of elements to the region, which makes it's never boring. So yeah, I've been very busy since Saturday with a lot of calls, people asking for advice, asking sort of analysis, how long this is going to go. We had a similar episode last year, which supposedly was to target the Iranian nuclear program, and this year, this one is about the missile capacity of Iran and its threat to the region, plus the possibly regime change. So whatever the context geopolitically, I'll leave that to later, perhaps. But we seem to get some volatility here in the region all the time. So we keep you all busy, wanting to know what's happening and how exciting it is or how dangerous it is. So I'm sitting right here, and it's I showed you the background. It's very peaceful, birds chirping. So it's just a very contrasting image to what people are used to. But yeah, we've been getting a lot of calls. A lot of people have been trying to get out of the UAE through the Oman corridor. And one of the reasons I'm actually based in Oman is I always believe that Oman is a lot more geopolitically less vulnerable than the immediate Gulf countries across from Iran, and the historical issues that have been between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and Oman is proving to be a very useful player, actually, if I can use that term in what's happening at the moment, and it's in the limelight, so everyone now knows about Oman.
Yeah,
It's
I
in
think
the
they're playing
news.
a role in mediation talks even before, with regards to the nuclear program, Iran's nuclear program, right?
Yeah, they're called the Switzerland of the Middle East. So they've always played this role, a non-aligned role, where talks between the Saudis and Israelis a couple of decades ago, and that was totally not allowed in the public eye. So they've always done the Iran Gulf, Iran Israel, Iran US. So from that perspective, they've had a very good role in that aspect, and they've maintained that sort of stance and ability to do diligent, quiet diplomacy that can help and provide an atmosphere where they can help get somewhere. They were doing quite well, according to their foreign minister, in this latest round of talks between indirect talks. So they would the Americans would talk with the Omanis, and the Iranians would talk with the Omanis, but I don't think they had any direct talks. So, but from that perspective, a lot of people who are in the business of diplomacy and politics and know about Oman, but Oman generally, to the public eye, is not known as much as some other flashier countries in the Gulf or even Egypt or whatever, in terms of tourism or what have you. So,
well, based on especially from your former experience as an ambassador, and you look back at the last few days, particularly from Saturday onwards, would you say the latest escalation of events was due to a breakdown in diplomacy? Like, what do you think happened there? And did any of this actually catch you off guard?
I think things move so quickly, so I don't want to be part of all these other experts, because I think everyone in the world has been doing podcasts and talking about this in the last few days. I've actually put some stuff on my LinkedIn as well about it. But to give a context to people about it, especially that I was doing a lot of work with Asia, and Asia didn't have that much interaction with this part of the world. So I was just trying to build this bridge to make them understand all these things that just are difficult to digest if you haven't grown up in this region or don't understand the dynamic of the relations or what have you. So, no, it did not come as a surprise. Nor did last year. Iran has not played a very positive role in the region with some of its proxies. Proxies as in like small groups that work in different countries for different reasons. And a lot of the countries in the region, not just Israel, find that the activities of these proxies is not very productive for the stability and peace of the region. From the other perspective of Iran, is a very old civilization who do not believe that they should be sanctioned for the use of peaceful means of producing nuclear energy, which is the official target of what they do. and then that they should not be under sanctions for this. They don't accept it lying down. The dynamic with Iran, if we just sort of try to focus on this for a second, is this has been going on for since the 70s and 60s and even beyond that. So it's always been seen as an enemy specifically by Israel mostly, and then that is conveyed to the West as an enemy to the West, and it always escalates, and they keep pushing the rhetoric, and then talk about nuclear threat, and that has to be neutralized and what have you. And Iran would push until the boiling point, the flash, and then negotiations come in and then calm things down, or you get a strike against Iran somewhere random, and then Iran strikes a couple of missiles which don't hurt anybody, and then they go to the negotiating table, and that's been going on for ages. The region has moved on. The region really needs a lot more stability to allow to continue the economic development, the human resources, innovation, and new generations of educated people. So just to move forward with the future rather than just try to resolve problems of the past or threats, military threats. So this is probably what's also governing this current situation that we're in. Iran, of course, everyone is limited by the amount of reserves that they have in firepower, especially missiles. It's not; these are not unlimited numbers. These are very expensive objects that you use, and they just blow up once. The drones are much cheaper. But what's happening is it seems to have the same trend. Iran, even though its leadership has been taken out in a unprecedented activity in world international order, post World War II anyway, they seem to be needing to get back to the negotiating table. So they have not lost control. They're still being able to threaten and keep all these fronts busy to try to get everyone to elongate this, to get everyone to stay, okay, well, listen, I mean, Emirates, I was just reading this morning, Emirates Airlines is losing like $1 million an hour. So you're talking billions every day to the region, setting it back. Iranians don't have much to lose. They got bombed, their leaders gotten killed, and they've been sanctioned. So it's all these other countries that have, UAE, Saudi Arabia, that have built this connection with Asia, that brought in a lot of money with China. How long can they afford this disruption to go? How much is it costing? How is that affecting the credibility in this hub and in this system on a long-term basis? Like, can I actually invest in an infrastructure and I don't want to name countries, but in one of the countries in the region for energy or whatever data centers, where in 10 years I don't know if it's going to get bombed. So the pressure is piling on from Iran, withstanding what's happening, so we can get back to the table and find another solution. I don't know if that is the solution, because that's been the trend for the last 20 years. If we actually, I think we don't, because there's so much going on, there's so much media, there's so much feed and on the internet, and we don't even remember very recent history. This is like just another, it's like, it's like one of these TV things. It's just, this is season 10 or 15. I don't want to sound, make it into a lightweight sort of issue, because the humanitarian cost and disruption is enormous.
Yes.
And then you feel sorry for people who are stuck, who don't know the region. Do I go now? Do I wait? Is it going to stop? I mean, am I going to actually get hurt if I'm hiding somewhere in the middle of UAE? No, because they're only bombing things that have a political statement that can force the UAE to deal with them geopolitically. So yeah, you being not in the palm because it's the closest to them, but sitting in some area in Dubai, you're safe. You're safe like any other city. They're fighting Israel. So when people ask you, what do I do? Do I go? Do I not? You just have to understand the region and sort of try to calculate the risk, whether you are actually in a risk area or you're just perhaps a side collateral incident with one drone, parts of it falling out of the sky. So,
I mean, I think the question also is whether or not things are going to, escalation. What it takes for an escalation to take place could be a really small trigger, which I think to a lot of people is hard to discern whether or not that's going to happen. And I think for a lot of people, nobody wants a protracted war or protracted conflict to take place. I think it's costly for everybody. I mean, everybody loses.
It happens on its own always. No,
but just based on what's been happening, I know it's only been a few days. It definitely feels very fluid. I mean, what's the likelihood of some sort of escalation kind of happening in the coming days, weeks? Everyone's kind of thinking, I was just checking on Polymarket before we came on, whether in the US is kind of dropping hints that, some sort of on-ground troop landing is going to take place in Iran. And there are people speculating, is it going to happen this week or next week or end of the month or in 6 months' time, all of that. I mean, I'm sure these are all
it is very fluid. I agree with you fully. It's actually a great observation. Iran is engaging everyone in the region to turn it into a huge spillover. And the reason why the United States or the West have always had bases in the Middle East or in the Gulf was to protect them, small countries and small families, from that big structure in Iran and Iraq. So that's been part of the game, or not game, but the relations between these regions. We will give you protection against these two big countries with history and military power or what have you, and unstable leadership, which is aggressive towards these small Gulfi countries. So that is one fact that now Iran is okay. You guys are bringing the Americans to help you out, so let's go. So that's why they've opened this episode is very different, because the Iranians are actually sending too many signals. We can disrupt the shipping lane. We can close the Straits of Hormuz. We can reach the countries in the Gulf, because they have a huge following of Shia Muslims, which exist in a lot of places, and they've been working on strengthening these elements for that day that they're faced with, Israeli or American decision to take over Iran. So they've been building towards this already. There's a lot of mixed messages that have come out of America in the last week. The very first one, since that last year, mission was to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. So it wasn't. I don't think that was the main sort of aim this year, because it was successful last year to terminate their nuclear ability. So this year, it was about their missile capacity and to change the regime. And then there was a retraction about regime change in different statements by different American officials. President Trump, I think, genuinely wasn't necessarily pro going into another war. I think when he promised the American people that he would not go into war, and his efforts to do a lot of peaceful negotiations with it. I mean, we're forgetting that Ukraine is still going on, so everyone is consumed here, right? There was a lot of problems between Iraq and Pakistan, so there's a lot going on. Right? There's a lot going in Sudan, and everyone now just loves to be focused on the Middle East. and the threat of Iran to Western civilization if they respond to being bombed, right? So I don't think they will get any boots on the ground. I think that because already there is a bit of a divide in the American society about why we're going to war. I don't think the Americans, and again, I'm using just general data, that there were a lot of clear declarations that they weren't going to start this this campaign on that day. I mean, it was Israel that chose the apparent timing of starting the campaign because of that they wanted to target that meeting with all the leadership of Iran. So these different statements are not comforting people on the ground in America, which then cost of life would have a huge political cost if many Americans would fall to this conflict. I don't think it's something that the Americans would do, because to bring those you needed some bases. You're not going to be able to mobilize them, I believe, from aircraft carriers. But I'm not a defense strategist or expert. But geopolitically, I do not think that this administration or any administration in the near future would take that would assume that risk. Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of comparisons also between the U.S. involvement in Iran this time versus U.S. and Iraq in the early 2000s. I don't know if is that a fair comparison, do you think, or do you think it's pretty different this time around?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, you can analyze in any analytical sort of issue that you can have. You can find some pros and cons or things in common or not. So, but no, Iraq was a very different story. Iraq was a country that invaded another Arab country, which was Kuwait. The Americans at the time built a consensus or some general sort of UN and alliance to liberate Kuwait and some of the Arab countries. This time is different. And at the time, a lot of these countries showed their cards. They came out and took sides. What's happening with Iran is that a lot of countries in the region are probably not very comfortable from a geopolitical and strategic perspective and existential reasons as well, with the Iranian regime being very fundamentalist and with a lot of activities that are counterproductive in the region. So whether they come out officially and say that, even though they are countries that, when there is a strike about to evolve or a conflict in the region, they do try to limit the conflict and make it quick. But there are a lot of countries that would probably would benefit, and the whole region would benefit of Iran going in a different direction to what they have done in the past. That's what these countries see. The Iranians would probably see it differently. This is just from an analytical point of view. It's not my point of view, just to clarify. But from knowing the region, from working in politics in the region, from understanding where most of these countries come from and their weaknesses and strengths, Iran has not played a very positive role in a peaceful development of the region, nor did Israel as well, because it believes that Iran has been a target for Israel now for many years, and that's why everyone and there's a lot of media coming out of America that Prime Minister Netanyahu tried for many years to convince American presidents to hit Iran, and he managed to do it with Trump. So I'm just sort of putting out there and trying to make sense out of all the analysis that are coming and captivate the mood of the people, their worries, their day-to-day life, because this is just this is just human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, this is affecting human beings. It's affecting their livelihood. The Gulf never had so much expat community. These people have chosen the UAE and as a place for the future. This is a safe place for their future. They're coming from India, they're coming from all parts of the world. And they decided this is a community where I don't have a problem with what I do. That, you know, I can make as much money as I can. It's safer than a lot of other places in terms of common crime. So they've managed to actually establish this sort of identity and brand in a very hot region. Like in the past, you remember, like, who would go and live in the Gulf at 50 degrees? Forget it, you know. But now everyone is dying to go and be part of that. That sort of. It's been created into a beautiful community, you know, gated communities. Everything just works, right? So now all of this is being threatened again to some forces or some mentalities of the past who just don't want to go forward. And I think that's I mean, so I don't want to go into like huge terms and the stuff that I use on LinkedIn, whatever, for investors or what have you, because they love that language. I really, when it comes down to, it's just people want to get on with their lives, including the Iranian people themselves. Like, you know, we've had enough. We don't want to be bogged down to this. We don't want to be, you know, targeted by the Americans and whatever. And by the Israelis, they feel threatened always by all their neighbors, and probably they should, because a lot of the neighbors never accepted them. So there's this quest of Israel to eliminate as much as they can. So they're fighting also on like 3 or 4 fronts. So yeah.
I mean, one concern I have also, and you correctly put out, I mean, we have not seen this much expat growth. You know, all these international institutional investors kind of choosing to open offices in the UAE, you know, and this kind of thriving that's been happening financially as well, in the UAE, and how they've been able to successfully position themselves as a safe haven, as a hub for not just the region, but for the world. How much, you know, just the recent course of events could it be successful in unwinding a lot of this progress that they've made? You know, and this wasn't just something that they decided they were going to do in the last like 3 years, 5 years. This was, you know, a really long period of time. And
it's taken
the
a
fact
long
that,
time.
yeah, so many expats who've been living in the UAE, you know, for the first time, you know, experiencing a bit of a fallout in a really big way. I don't think the UAE in its history has really experienced something like that, at least not to this degree. But correct me if I'm wrong.
First time, absolutely.
How do you think, I mean, how are you kind of sizing those particular events, at least for the UAE and its position for the region and the world?
Oh, they've proved over and over again how clear they are about the trajectory of what they do. They've been investing very, very cleverly. They have built a lot of bridges, and they've managed finally. I mean, I was in the business of trying to bring Chinese and Asian capital to the market, or vice versa, and it just takes forever because this layer of confidence, this layer of like clarity, this layer of you know, that reliability of this market, predictability of where we're going, and these are very important things for people in business and for certain cultures, right? This thing about us in the Middle East, you know, we just deal with whatever it is, because we're personal, we're very personal, not transactional, like the East. So this area of the Gulf, and that was one of my main missions, is that it's been in bed with the West for so long, since its creation, where they didn't have the infrastructure, they didn't have the ambition, they didn't have the drive, and they didn't have the pillars like proper banking and financial, regulatory, all of these things have and the way they've been investing their money, how they've invested into other regions and cultures. All of this hadn't happened, and then finally it's coming together in the last 10 years, and then the process was becoming a bit more predictable and understandable to the East, and then finally that connection started. And in the number of Asian, I'm not saying it from a racial, but I'm just category from Asia, for near and far East Asia, they've been becoming part of that deal. I personally went with so many delegations. We went looking for business in Saudi. We went looking for business in Qatar. We went all over the Gulf. But the underlying sort of challenge was always to convince or to debunk all these things about the Middle East or the Arabs or Islam. Getting your hand cut and all that stuff that you watch in Hollywood movies, which doesn't exist anymore, and then go through the process of trust and build people to people, and the lifestyle that the people that come from Asia actually, you want to live in a city and work in a city that you enjoy. You not just to fly in and do business, whatever. You can do that too, but that normally is not. You don't become part of the system. So banks were opening, and all the entities from all the funds from sovereign funds, and then there was a lot of interaction and connection between the stock exchange in these countries and whatever. So this has been going on for a while, and this could shake that process. The length of this, the severity of this, and I think this is what Iran is they need to get back to the table. They're not going to just sit there until someone comes and blows them out of the planet. So they need to find a way to put pressure.
You say Iran.
UAE. They need to put pressure. No. I mean, talking about Iran putting pressure on these countries, and that's where UAE came into play, is because the UAE, they understand that UAE cannot sustain this sort of uncertainty into them being a hub and a financial hub and a great place to live for the future. So I think this is the difference.
When things are escalating and people are talking about military intervention, it's kind of difficult to get back to the negotiation table, right? Like, as an ambassador, I mean, you've been in these sorts of tricky situations.
But negotiations, but that's the only way. That's the only way to do it, because either one of them finishes off the other one, then there's no need to negotiate. Which is quite sad. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make a light conversation. I don't want it to be too technical. If you want to go technical, there's so much on the internet. We're happy to. But it just for normal, for people who just want to get to the bottom of this. I mean, it is the only way you can solve problems in modern world most of the time is negotiating. Now, negotiating in the traditional format of the multilateral system, which was the United Nations and the Security Council, sadly hasn't been very effective at all. And not only that, I think that the last year or two, not just the Americans, but there might be other countries as well, who have decided, okay, we're done with this multilateral system. We're just going to go in and execute what we think is in our best interest in terms of national security or our positioning in the new global world order, or potential threats that we might see. So, many, there are many factors. But what I'm saying is that Iran, knowing that the Israelis and Americans have declared that this is a campaign to destabilize the incumbent government and kill all of them, so people on the street would take over. Understand that this is a critical point. This is survival. This is different to the other ones. The other ones were targeted bombs for a specific reason, which is nuclear plants, this and that and the other. This is about, and they know that this is about sort of destroying a lot of their infrastructure. So this is vital for the Iranians. So negotiating from this position is not going to help. You need to turn this into a regional conflict where there's a lot of other factors here. So countries like the UAE would be the ones that would go to America and say, look, if we can't stand this anymore, can you please just try to stop this now? Our fleet is on the ground. We cannot get people out. People are not going to come back, whatever. So then you have a lot of other countries in the region asking the Americans and Israelis who initiated this. So far, it's Iran retaliating to what some other countries have done. So they need more people to come and ask for negotiations, but by forcing them into trying to stop the conflict rather than help Iran directly, and that's what's happening.
But then the risk also is that they take off the head of the snake, as they call it, and there is no smooth transition or no meaningful change. Isn't that more destabilizing for the entire region?
I know where you're going. Yeah, I agree with you fully. And from recent history, again, we're not going to go very far back. It hasn't worked, and it has not resulted in many positive outcomes. For many reasons, right? We don't want to spend the time talking about this, but yeah. And the other thing that you've been alluding to all this for the conversation is that we walk into wars, we walk into bigger conflicts. I mean, look at world wars. And when you have so many people involved, because when you have two parties, that's called a restricted conflict between these two. When you have another one, that's a regional one that could potentially be international. I mean, I wrote again. I wrote one of these things on LinkedIn about asking if Iran was fighting alone. No, and not because, and I'm of course I don't mean specifically Russia and Iran and China, what have you, but if America's declared intention is to neutralize a destabilizing regime in that region for the whole region and the international peace, then other moderate to big powers who also have a role to play or look for a role to play in this international order have to protect their own interests as well. Not necessarily that they meet Iran's interests as much as that this then becomes a chess game all over the world, and then it's thin, and then it goes into geography where these passages for trade go. And that's what revolves about. That's been the history of humankind. It's been the same thing. Just power, economy, access, and that's the Emiratis as well. The Emiratis are spending an enormous amount of money in points of access, which is very similar to the Belt and Road Initiative, which is all about strategically building relations with people, and in the process enabling all these countries to work on their structure, which then sort of helps the trade around the world and peaceful interaction rather than war. So there's more trade, there's more wealth that comes to these spots in the world, yeah, and progress.
So, I mean, you've been doing a lot of work, with, Asian family offices. You spend a bit of time in Hong Kong as well, and in recent times to try and build a bridge between the two regions, right? Particularly Greater China and the Gulf. Have you gotten a lot of people reach out to you since Saturday, especially those from Asia? What kind of questions are they asking you? What are their topmost concerns, and what is your response to them?
Well, I think it's just they don't need to reach to. I mean, what can you in a time like this when you're bombarded by this news every day? What argument can you make apart from people to be clever, to understand what their appetite is, mitigate this risk? It's not going to go very far. I mean, these structures that have been put in place will rebound, and will rebound, and they have rebound before. So not to, don't get too jittery. Just go with the process, understand that this is part of this region's heritage and history and risk management. Of course, if you can anticipate better how long it might take, how different this is to the last one, yes, then you need local experts to give you that perspective. Then you take that perspective, and then, but to abandon the process or or to think that this is the end of that part. Well, if it ends, we will all know. There's nothing to do for now, right? So if it ends in the next 2 weeks, we will all know about it. And so you don't need to make a decision about that. What you need to do is see beyond that and understand the process of what's going on. And that's normally built on assessment of what's happened in the past. And what you can't just go to the news and think, oh, well, Iran has done this and that and whatever, so they're really strong, they can do this again and whatever. It's this is a very complex assessment that you need proper experts from the region to do. But the message is, we've done so well and we've done a lot for so long, right? You know the markets in Asia, you understand the challenges that it has, you understand the challenges that the Chinese economy has been having in the past few years. It's not going to go on for too long, but you understand that the friction between the East and West and the tussle where innovation and how we're going to go in the future. So these things are not going to change. You have to look for regions where they have new regions, young regions which are growing with demand and with an appetite and with resources that can help your business. And that has a price. You have to just understand what the price is and work with it. It's a very simple message. Of course, that's not what we do in the executive summary or what have you, but it's pretty much this because at the end of the day, they're human beings. They go back and say, like, what? Why should I bother? Especially the older generation. If you like the younger ones, which are taking over from the families, then they have a slightly different approach. But again, still the Middle East is relatively new, at least to a lot of people from the East. So they haven't spent long enough. There's no intermarriages between that region, and so these very emotional, intimate layers of human interaction have not developed as much as it was with the West. I have nothing against the West or the East, but I'm just saying, as if that was the advice I would give to families from Asia who don't have the same sort of background and religious tensions between people in our region, or don't understand why Shia is very different to Sunnah and what the problem is, what the historical problem is between the Shia Ali ibn Abi Talib that they follow and how he was killed. And so these are stories that still to some extent affect our present and our future. And I think some countries in the region want to focus on the present and the future and detach a bit from the past.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's I'm fully pro that. So that's been one of my missions, and trying to do that even pro bono. It's just I just love building that bridge, and working with other people who can build enough blocks of trust that are difficult to chip at in times of crisis, because that's times of crisis you will have every time, everywhere, in different parts of the world for different reasons. Only that this area, well, at least we know that it's going to happen every year.
Yeah.
in other areas. I'm sorry, it's not funny.
Really the kind of thing you want to tell investors,
no,
but
no, I'm so sorry. No, but actually, if it's a predictable cycle, it still works for me. I mean, I don't predict. I'm not in the business of prediction. I'm in the business of analyzing and facts, which lead to things. So I'm not predicting. This is a pattern, and that pattern will never change as long as the problem still remains. As long as the issue that is causing this, or some of the actors, I'm going to get in trouble now. You're pulling me into trouble. Some of the actors in the region do not change their attitude or do not change their approach, then there will not be change. It will continue to evolve and happen again under a different pretext. So if you're an investor in a region that is guaranteed, because of geographical reasons and some of the actors in the region, to reoccur So you need to know how to deal with that. The rewards are good. I mean, you make a lot
Yeah.
more money and a lot more business in some of the unstable
Sure.
areas. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I think we discussed this the last time we spoke as well is, and and again, as we enter into a period like this, I think people tend to get more triggered because, you haven't had that lived experience or you haven't had that historical context to be able to frame why events are happening the way that they are. And I think in Asia, as you pretty very well know, I think very few of us actually have a sound enough grid or even a workable grid, mental grid of how to analyze the Middle East because there have been so little encounters with the region. And as you say, right, a lot of it really goes back in time, which a lot of Asians have not really spent time really digging into a lot of that. But I mean, you talk to a lot of Asian investors, and a lot of the concerns for investors, particularly family offices, institutional investors, is this element of risk, right? I mean, based on the conversations that you've had with these Asian investors, um, are there particular risks that they tend to over-index on, and are there other risks that they tend to under-index on when it comes to, allocating to the Middle East or, deploying into the Middle East?
I think it's really the normalization of incremental sort of instability in the region, which would hurt everything very much. If this continues to increment the amount of instability, then they will just figure it out. Now, I think one of the requirements, one of the reasons where a lot of people went to the Middle East was maybe access to the American markets or geopolitical reasons with China, if I'm talking about the East. And they would try Singapore, try Malaysia, but that's just different markets, a lot more competitive in different areas. So a lot of it is not by choice. A lot of it is also the growth in terms of industries, many industries, aerospace, real estate, hotels, what have you. In the UAE, there was a huge increase in the amount of Chinese living there, which means that then you have a growing market that you can serve outside China for whatever it is. But it's been mostly, I think, financial areas like crypto, blockchain, whatever, where the regulator in the UAE has been very, very aggressive and open-minded and going into that sort of space where you created another hub that was connecting, that had a lot of liquidity from that region, that worked within that region's time frame. It's not 5 hours before or 5 hours later. So the connecting those, and then that's where cities that have similar institutions in place, and tools and instruments and the right plumbing, then they meet, and then that money then matches, because they're all serving family offices, and all those family offices are served by mostly like, where do their kids go to school, where they're comfortable in the city, and where is their network, right? And then it becomes very competitive, and then so they have to look for another city, and that's the same in the UAE. They also need to, the governments or these entities need to serve their clients that have decided to live there, the family offices, and to keep them in that country by accessing other markets for them while they're physically there, instead of them taking their family office elsewhere. So that's where the whole, and there's no east and west in it. This is like, they can go into products, into companies that are owned by families, hedge funds, or whatever, from different parts. But if you have increased instability, the stock market shuts for a few days. I think the one in the UAE has just shut. You can't get there. You have to fly out, and you were scared for 2 nights in the hotel. That cannot be good for business, sir. So I don't actually advise the families on how they use their money, because they're very good at that, much better than I am. But it's whether it's whatever signs that they have that they cannot do that. That's what I do. That they need clarity on how they leverage. It's pretty much the Gulf is originally was all about liquidity and the huge investments of sovereign funds. And then the sort of growth plans that they have, like in Saudi Arabia, 2040, whatever, each one had one. So those were the main attractions, plus the pressure that you had to entering the American markets and the competitiveness of the Asian markets. So those were the driving reasons why you should go. Now, where you should invest those, then it became what has changed in the last few years is that the UAE, Qatar was already there, but it's just small economy. The UAE and Saudi Arabia, which were very, very bullish about sort of putting together all the instruments that allow then these to be hubs for exchange of capital and financial opportunities, and especially in the area of innovation or what have you. So, and they had deep pockets. So really, one of the advisors used to ask people when they would, for example, I get someone from crypto talking to them, we can't go to Saudi because they're not there. They're not working on that space at all. They still need a bit more control. And that's as much as they should know enough about which countries. So it's one big market, 86 million, the whole Gulf. So it's not really just one country. But it is different markets and different set of people and different culture to some extent and how you work with them. So that you should recognize. So you can do your scan for a few months just to get familiar with it a little bit, and then decide which of these markets suits your product and how you can come in a joint venture, not just come in and look for checks. I'm just repeating it, what everyone knows.
Yeah.
But also these markets are asking, not asking, they're basically demanding you now to be part of the process. So then you need to figure out whether you actually want to commit and be part of this process or in the country next to it, because they're very competitive with each other, whether it suits your lifestyle. Do you want to move there? How much time do you want to spend? So this is what was changing. And everyone wanted to go to Hollywood. Like everyone wants to live in California. Like, why go to Dubai? Man? Like, and it's too hot. So to get people to start sort of saying, well, I'm not going to go to Geneva this summer or this winter. I'm actually going to go in Abu Dhabi. They've got museums. I'm going to hang out with a lot of people. There's a lot of Michelin restaurants. So why not? And it's closer. And there's a network where I can make some money. So business and pleasure. So that is something that's been created incrementally in the Gulf. Now, if the instability period continues for much longer, then also that will erode a lot of work that is being done and have people doubt the process. So that's my main worry. Personally.
I think it's also going to be interesting to see. I mean, if I were to put myself in the shoes of a mainland Chinese or even someone out of Hong Kong, over the last few years, you've seen this trend, right? I think in terms of where people have been moving and where capital has been moving, I'm talking coming out of China. They came to Singapore, they came to Southeast Asia, they've gone, some of them are finding their way to Japan. A lot of it has been moving, and some of them also landed in Dubai. There has been that exodus has been going on for the last couple of years. Now, with these latest series of events, could we see, more of that forging between the Chinese and the Gulf kind of capital ecosystems coming together even more now? Will be, I think, interesting to see, but I don't know.
But it's a two-way relationship. So I guess in the Gulf, some of the smaller countries, which feel threatened by Iran's or are threatened by Iran's presence and its some of its activities, and they've always sought backing and support from America specifically. Would probably be looking for if the relationship was to go that one step extra, we'd be looking for the same from China. So this is because, you know, it's the families that actually rule the country or own or heads of the sovereign funds, and they also have their own wealth. So it's a very sort of tight-knit network. So they probably would also want to have a stronger presence of Chinese support and power in such times. So that is also part of it. But it's not China's. I mean, China doesn't do that, you know, and even though they do actually promote, you know, peaceful existence and non-interference and what have you, and negotiations, and which we all actually agree and would love to have. But then in times where there is not control for one reason or the other, they would probably, I mean, some of the families in Qatar, they're really a small number. Yeah. I mean, all the Emiratis is 1 million. 1 million in a country like Egypt is smaller than a neighborhood of people. So it's I mean, size matters, and Iran is a big country. That is showing that regardless of all these years of sanctions, they have been able to develop some lethal firepower. And have groups that can help them beyond their borders. Now that's pretty that's very threatening for smaller communities. So they, to some extent, require help and assistance. And you saw it last year when President Trump came to the region, and all the checks that he got supposedly for. But that's what people always say. I mean, I'm not bringing anything up new. That it was always like that. You know, America was interested in the oil, and it was just scaring the Gulfies to pay the bill for the protection. And this is just normal stuff that I pick up on Twitter. Part of it is true. You know, in normal human life, you always look for a rich uncle or a strong uncle to help you out, right? So you know, it really we have to humanize. I mean, we have to bring this back a bit. You know, we have to take a step back from all the structures and all the analysis and all this and that, and just go back to basics of human interaction and requirements and how certain countries or certain communities, which everyone, you know, looks down upon. The Gulfies in the 70s, they were this and that, whatever. They were spending the money in nightclubs or whatever. No, they're spending it now on their youth, on developing their own countries, building roads, having access to technology. But then they're not being able to continue this journey because of regional annual disruptions. So, yeah.
I think one last question for me before we kind of wrap things up. I think the role of, the media and the role of propaganda, especially during a time like this, during a time of war and conflict, is always very critical and very influential. I mean, you've been in civil service for a really long time. I mean, how has the role of the media evolved, would you say, from the time that you started till now? Because obviously, I think technology, distribution, all of that has changed quite a lot and is still changing even now.
Yeah, well, I've had extensive training in this and how to manage media and campaigns and what have you, and sell your country and defend your country. And I was lucky; I represented a country that everyone loved, so I didn't have to defend that 2 kids were killed today by a bomb, or whatever. We were just talking about the fair. So I had a very very easy ride, right? But but because I am trained in that, you read these things when you hear, you just listen to Jon Stewart. It's a funny program from the US about like how Cyprus was brought into the war. Cyprus wasn't brought into. There was just one drone that went there, but just to make it more sensational, and the terminology that is used as being part of the war. No, it's not being part of the war. So the information that you're feeding people. I'll tell you one quick story. So I worked a lot with the foreign ministers during my time when I was back in Cairo, and so I did a lot of the Palestinian-Israeli negotiations or what have you. And I remember this one time in Tony Blair's first mandate, I think, and Tony Blair was the first one that sort of brought this into a business, into seriously, like it was like almost a Hollywood production, and he had all the reporters around him. There was this old-fashioned reporting, and all these people, and they were very well known. Some of them are still working with some of the big, Hala Gouranis and Amanpour or what have you. So all these people have passed by for that region and covered these areas, and I've come across them. And then he comes in, and he's got a huge entourage, and this entourage is like built to promote what he do, and all the countries do that, but he just did it better. And I recall coming out of because of course the news you make the news. We're the ones that make the news. We're sitting at the table. We're the ones that everyone is waiting for us to tell them, oh, we're going to go to war tomorrow. Oh, this was positive. It was fruitful, whatever that means, So, and I remember something happened, it was like in the 90s at a certain point. Something happened while we were in the meeting, and we came out, and the media dictated the events. We weren't making the events. We were part of the event for the first time. That was my first experience. I'll never forget that with now his team, because he had this team of professionals, sort of managed a little bit. I can't remember the specifics of what happened at the time, but someone got shot, whatever, while we were doing that, and it was completely different to the agreed press release that was going, because it's normally like a press release that both parties are happy to work with to make it successful, but it was just totally different, and for the very first time, our guys and everyone else was just faced with questions by the media. And ever since, even in my job, by the time I have to report on an issue, if I had to report on what's going on in Iran today, and I was in Latin America or somewhere in one of these embassies, and by the time you get to see somebody, to talk to them about it, make your own analysis, 70 million things, and now ChatGPT and Grok has all of this together. So you are going back to the old style sort of human relations building, which again, both of us, even if we have that rapport together, still affected by the speed of the media that I think has accelerated the speed of events. So it's not the events that's speeding the media. The media is actually feeding people who are in the event and speeding what they're doing and influencing, believe it or not, their process. So that's crazy. I mean, I'm not going to go into the AI and how, but that is a definite change. Thank God I'm not
Do you still
having
speak
to
to
deal with
your
these tools
colleagues?
now.
Do your ex-colleagues talk about this? I mean, is this something that comes up in conversations?
Yeah, but I mean, it's we don't admit that the machine can beat us generally. So
Well, it is. I mean,
yeah, but then all of us, believe that we know better and we can analyze better. That's very true. But the speed of it, and of course the quality of AI is got a lot of issues and questions, what have you. But the
the quality of
ability,
media is also not very good too.
no, but the ability to get, like, we're doing this podcast, right? There's 700,000 other ones that have been done today about the same subject. Did we talk about something different? Probably not much, but a little bit. How many people is it going to reach? So even if you have an understanding or an edge or better analysis of it, the other issue is how you get that through, and then getting that through the machines that actually control the media and make so much money. I mean, you have great content. How can you get your content to compete with all these other people who have millions and millions of followers? The machine works to their advantage. They control the narrative. It's all about the narrative, and I think that narrative is what people that are making decisions or in the middle of this crisis are reflecting, reacting to. So
yeah, I mean, in so many ways, I feel like this is very much a narrative war. I mean, I don't know if it's much more of a narrative war today than it was before. Sometimes I feel that way, just because of what you said, right? I think the speed and acceleration of events and I mean, this is a great case in point, just the last few days, just the amount of content and people sharing links and speculating and verifying your sources and all of this stuff. It's just a lot to take in. And I'm not even someone who's a decision maker or someone who's a politician,
Yeah.
And
half of the pictures are incorrect, and half of the comments are incorrect. In times of wars and crisis, traditionally you promoted things that weakened the enemy and made them collapse. Now you have even more tools. It's how do we find a way to? I mean, again, that's why you make these communities and you share and exchange with them content that is useful, that is more useful than more adaptable to their needs than other ones. Every information that is on the internet probably serves somebody for something, right? Just depends on what is it that you need to know. And again, I'm happy to work in that space of trying to help as much as I can to simplify as simply as possible all the dissemination of all the what's happening without the fancy terminology or whatever. Just really try to make it as simple as possible for people, not because they need simplicity at all. They're very intelligent, clever people, but maybe sometimes it's really very simple. We over process it. We have too many boards, we have too many advisors, and too many people giving you long whatever. And in a moment like this, you just need a couple of thoughts. Like, what's going on? Should I go or should I not? It's that simple. Now you give them a briefing for 2 or 3 hours with all this stuff. Yeah, all right. Well, not the only briefing of the day too. There's going to be 10 of them. Should I go or should I not? No, don't go. Why? Because I told you so. No. I mean, that you should take your word for, but because nothing's changed. It's not very different, regardless of what you see in the news. That is, I think, in my opinion, is very precious. It's very important.
Well, let's hope we see more of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the sun has come out. I'm very happy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go.
we should wrap.
I'm gonna go tanning now on the beach in this time of crisis.
Yeah, and then we talk again. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll wrap this, and I hope to see you again soon. And definitely stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay safe and take care.
Thank you very much, Kristie. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.